So color is pretty important when we're thinking about landscape because it tells us what time of day or what type of day it is. Here I see that the sky is really bright, so it must be like the middle of the day. It's probably not morning, probably not sunset yet. So I can see that it's kind of a bright, sunny day. I can also tell the season. I see it's really green, so it must be winter or early spring. So you can decide if you want to use the colors that you really see in the picture, or if you want to just be a little bit creative with it and go crazy with your color. You see here I was working on a piece of red paper, so that red is showing through in places and it feels more like sunset or morning or some kind of imaginative space. So your colors are your choice. Since I did a wild and crazy one, I might go with the more traditional colors this time. So I see I have my color palette here. You know, I've just got the basics. So a lot of people call it painting with pastels because color mixing works similar to paint. So if I wanted a light blue, I might take some of this medium blue and I could add a little bit of white to it. Okay, and then I can blend and those colors mix and create a new color. So I notice oftentimes that the horizon is a little bit lighter. So maybe I'll use a little bit more of my white. And then oftentimes the higher part of the sky can be a little bit darker. So when I'm using my chalk pastels, you see there's all this dust, okay? So I can kind of use my finger to blend that dust and make it go into areas that I haven't covered yet, kind of making good use of all that extra material. Or you might have to occasionally pick up your paper and just tap, 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 okay? So each one of you has a special extra red paper that will be your placemat while you're working so that you don't make your house a mess. Okay, so I'm trying to fill in from top to bottom or from farthest away to closest. So I know that the sky is behind this mountain, and this mountain is behind this mountain, and this is behind the foreground. So I'm starting with what's furthest away, and generally that's at the top of the paper. So you'll notice that when I'm blending, I'm doing kind of a light touch, and I want to just use 1 or 2 fingers to blend. So I'm going to start moving forward, and I can think about what color I might want for that furthest distant ridge. I notice when things are far away, they start to get a little hazy or kind of misty, and that sets them into the background. So I might think about actually using a little bit of blue with my green and trying to mix kind of a misty or hazy color for that. And then I might need to tap my dust away again. So as you're working, you'll notice that for small areas, you might need to use the corner of your pastel. But for medium areas, you might use the end of your pastel. And then for large areas, you can use the side of your pastel. So I'm thinking about how to make it clear that this mountain is separate from this mountain and that's separate from this mountain. And one good way to do that is with color. So I can make this mountain a different color from the mountain that's around it or behind it. And then you can clearly see this shape is set apart from the other shape. If I were to make these mountains the same color and forget about my shapes, it all kind of starts to blend together. So let me show you what that looks like. You can see it kind of all blends and blurs together. So what I really want to do is make it clear that this mountain is behind that mountain. So I'm going to make it a bit of a different color. Maybe I could make make this one a little bit darker also. I also am looking for values the same way that I did in my, my sketch of my Cooper hawk. So I see that the sun is coming from this direction, making a shadow on this side of the mountain. So I'm going to use a little bit of dark blue, or maybe some dark green. I could even mix a little bit of purple if I wanted to make that look like a really deep shadow. I could use some black if I wanted to make that shadow look really dark, but be careful with using your black chalk because it can really dull your color down. It makes everything kind of want to turn to gray. So that's why I like to use dark colors rather than just black. So I noticed this is a pretty dark area, so I'm going to use my dark color pastels to fill in that shape. And then I can mix some colors in to make it feel a little bit more like a natural color, maybe a little bit of green. And I see there's kind of a light area here and a light area here. And a little bit of a light area here. I see there's also dark shadow under the arch of the bridge. So I could include that. I kind of like this color that I made, my shadow color, so I think that had a little bit of purple, a little bit of dark green, and maybe a little tiny bit of black in it. So color mixing with my chalk pastels is pretty similar to working with paints. So I'm filling in shape by shape and trying to make it clear that this shape is set apart from this shape, and this is its own shape, and this is its own shape. And I'm starting with big areas first. So we notice in the foreground, I can see that this is made up of all different leaves and foliage, but I'm going to start by giving it a base color first, because underneath all that leaf and foliage action, there's probably solid ground. So I'm going to fill that in, thinking about big areas first. I'm seeing this is a little bit of a darker area, so maybe I could make that a little bit more shadowy. See, this is a little bit darker. I'm going to make that a little bit shadowy. And I'm thinking about filling in big areas first. Once I get all my big shapes filled in, then I can start thinking about details. So I see some really cool bright leaves. So I can fill those in. I don't have to draw the leaves exactly. I can find a mark that kind of starts to look like foliage, maybe some little taps, something like that. But I noticed that in the foreground, or the closest part to me, those leaves are really big, but then as they get further away, they get tinier and tinier. So my details in the foreground are very close, but then as they move away from the foreground, they start to look further away, so maybe a little tinier. And you notice in this hill, I don't even see the leaves because they're so far away. So I might just give a little hint of texture there. So I want to continue filling in my biggest shapes first. I forgot about my ocean here. So I'm using that medium edge of my chalk pastel to fill in a medium-sized area, maybe big marks for a big area. But if you've ever looked at the ocean, you notice it's not just one color. So I might start to add in and mix some different colors. I also noticed that the ocean has these beautiful waves and ripples. And those, again, when they're close to me in the foreground, near the bottom of the picture, they're going to be pretty big. But then as they get further away, they might be smaller. Make a little bit of the foam at the edge of the ocean, and then as it gets closer, I can see more of that, and the marks are bigger. So as you go along, you can keep adding details. Like I see some cool clouds in here, and those just look like a lighter value. I see the horizon might get even a little bit lighter, and I can make it even a little bit more clear where the edge of that horizon line is. So if I want to put a highlight, which is the brightest part, like these clouds are really bright. I might put that kind of at the end because they can easily get blended away. Light colors aren't as strong and they can easily get blended away. Another thing we also want to be careful about is blending too much. You saw that I just completely erased that by blending too much. So especially if I'm adding a highlight, I want to be careful not to blend too much. I just might blend just the very edges of that so you can still see the light of the cloud. And also when we're working with details, maybe I'll put a little bit more detail in these leaves. Make it really feel like foliage. I'm using the corner of the pastel to add these details. But I have to be careful because if I blend too much, it just works like an eraser and all that work disappeared. So be really careful when you're blending not to over blend. Now I have to do that again. Bring my leaves back. So remember, when you're working on a landscape like this, you are the artist. You can choose your colors, you can choose what extra details you want to focus on, and you can really make it your own. So I want to make this bridge my own, so I might make it a little bit of a different color. Maybe I want it to be bright pink. So I'm adding some detail lines in so you can really see that bridge. And I chose this color to make it really stand out. So if you want something to stand out, you can make it a different color or a different value. So when I think I'm all done, I look at my photo and I look at my drawing. I look at my photo, I look at my drawing. I see if there's anything else I want to add or anything I missed. When I look closely, I realized, oop, I didn't quite get that last shape. So this is something you can do from photo, or you can take your materials outside and find a beautiful view. I hope you enjoy your sketching.